So we'd like to welcome you to our first set of BS Physics students who will be defending their thesis this second semester academic year 2025-2026. So our first student, he will be talking about his work on determining the ground state energy of materials, particularly silicon and aluminum, using physics-informed thermodynamics. His co-advisor is Professor Christian Crisostomo from Department of Physical Sciences and Department of Physical Sciences, Cultural Science. His reader is Professor Paul Samuel Ignacio from Department of Mathematics and Computer Science, UP Baguio. And also would like to welcome his examiner all the way from the University of San Tomas, Department of Physical Sciences, specializes in high energy physics, to Professor Janus. So, whenever you're ready, you can start.
Once again, good morning, everyone. Esteemed panelists, our facilitators for today's presentation, as well as our audience in-house and online. And welcome to my thesis presentation titled Variational Minimization of the Ground State Energy via Physics-Informed Neural Networks, a case study for bulk silicon and aluminum. To contextualize our discussion for today, we tend towards the materials design and modeling, whereas in studying an experimental material, to determine its physical properties, whether it's magnetic, structural, electronic, or other examples of physical properties, the usual protocol is to do a first principles calculation. A first principles calculation is where we build the material in the atomic model, and then apply numerical or stochastic approaches under this material based on the laws of quantum mechanics, statistical thermodynamics, classical mechanics, and electrodynamics. Whatever first principles approach there is, the starting point is always the quantum many problem, which is the challenge of determining the behavior of any given system or material from its interacting particles. And in this quantum many problem, an exact solution cannot be obtained with the exception of a few particle systems. This is because of the high dimensionality property of the wave function as the solution to the general Schrodinger's equation that describes this quantum many body problem. That's why several other approaches were developed to bypass this quantum many body problem. One such development is the density functional theory. It reduces the dimensionality of the wave function by reformulating the perspective from the quantum many problem towards a new DFT perspective where there is a single ion and a charge density surrounding it. Instead of looking now for the wave function as the solution to the general Schrodinger's equation, we are now looking for the ground state charge density as the solution to the Kohn-Sham equations, which is now the governing equation in this perspective. In practice, an approach to density functional theory is direct minimization algorithms, which is a gradient-based approach that minimizes the free energy with respect to the orbitals. These orbitals will drive the system towards its ground state, and after we find the ground state charge density, we will fix that and perform post calculations to get our desired material properties. This similarity has potential application to deep learning because of how the direct minimization approach minimizes the energy as to how neural networks optimize the loss function. So this paves the way for a physics-informed unsupervised learning approach towards DFT. With that being said, we have our two objectives for my study. Number one is to significantly reduce the computational cost by integrating a physics-informed neural network that accelerates the direct minimization algorithm. And number two is to establish a case study for the integration of physics-informed neural networks, using silicon as representative material for semiconductors and aluminum as representative material for conductors. To start our discussion, or before we go on to the methodology, several foundations are needed to be defined, such as the foundations in density functional theory, where in 1964, Hohenberg and Kohn developed this theory to circumvent the arising quantum many-body problem. The foundations of full density functional theory is laid by two theorems called the existence theorem and the variational theorem. The existence theorem states that there exists a density uniquely determined by the interacting system under an external potential. This theorem proves that we can try a hypothetical DFT system that when we drive the calculation towards the ground state, it will correspond to the ground state properties of the actual system. The variational theorem states that for any trial electron density, the total energy functional will always be greater than or equal to the ground state density. This means that for the total energy functional from the hypothetical system in DFT, when we minimize that to the global minima, or when we locate the global minima for that functional, it corresponds to the true total global minima of the system. This next slide states the computational domain of DFT, which is in the atomic scales for the length and in the atto to nanoseconds time scales. Albeit for this study, we are only interested at the ground state of the system. So we are looking at it in such a way that it's like frozen in time, where it's not time dependent. Typical DFT calculations are performed by solving the self-consistent field methods only. One possible reason is that the variational method in direct minimization requires searching through high-dimensional spaces. As such, machine learning, DFT, or applications tends toward to work with this self-consistent field, such as in 2022, Lee et al. Developed a deep learning neural network to represent a Consham Hamiltonian that bypassed the self-consistent field iterations, with the goal of improving the efficiency of the algorithm. In 2024, another group of researchers applied a neural network to develop and predict the initial density matrix in a way such that it will give a near convergent solution already, so that the original algorithm won't work originally as hard to push towards convergence. But SCF computation can fail in certain challenging cases, such as when there are multiple degenerate states or near degenerate states at the Fermi level for metals. That's why in that case, it's more favorable to work with direct minimization algorithms, because it's a more fundamental way in solving density functional theory based on the variational principle. With this reason, another group of researchers on the same year unified the optimization of neural networks with the variational computation of DFT, with the neural network representing the DFT Hamiltonian, enabling a physics-informed unsupervised learning. In the figure, there is two ways to approach the challenge of unifying the optimization of neural networks with the variational computation. That is to first define the material structures, then we can either perform a separate calculation for the DFT and use that data for the to feed on the neural network, or in a case of supervised learning method. Letter B is another approach that is we define the material structure and incorporate the physics-informed neural network inside the algorithm. That is, it will give the necessary physical properties to extract or to compute for the desired DFT properties like the electron density, Hamiltonian, and such things. And with this DFT properties computed, automatic differentiation works, which I will be discussing later, for the loss and for the gradients of the loss as the energy functional. Let's look towards the direct minimization algorithm of the free energy of the system. A separate group of researchers, Lee et al., developed a direct minimization algorithm that, in this case, it handles both orbitals and occupation matrix to find the ground state of a periodic system. This is a new development for direct minimization algorithms because in the previous method, in the previous slide, only the orbital matrix or only the orbital variational parameters are handled such that the internal energy is the only thing minimized. In this algorithm, which will be the baseline algorithm for this study, we handle both orbitals and occupation matrix. In this case, we extend from the total energy functional to free energy functional. With the foundations of density functional theory and direct minimization algorithms defined, let's now define physics-informed deep learning with physics-informed neural networks or PINs as neural networks that incorporate physical laws that describe the differential equations into their loss functions. This guides the learning process towards solutions to a more consistent with the underlying physics. Typically, a deep learning method has three main components: the neural network, the loss function, and the optimizer. And fundamentally, these pins convert the challenge of approximating these solutions into one of minimizing the loss function. This is done by approximating the solution using neural networks and defining the loss function such as it is bound to the constraints of the system. The idea of describing a custom loss function that follows the physics is a significant advancement that distinguishes pins from regular neural networks. Just like a regular neural network, the building blocks of pins is the standard artificial neuron that takes in one or more inputs from raw data or other neurons and perform a linear weighted summation with activation functions set by the user. It can take a single or multiple input, and it can take a single or multiple output depending on the use case of the neural network. We can layer this to build a standard multi-layer perceptron, which consists of at least one input layer, at least one hidden layer, and one output layer. The input layer is the layer of neurons that takes in the raw data, and the hidden layers perform additional computation or processes, and the output layer use that additional computations to decide on the final output of the neural network. One of the features of the neural network is the compatibility with automatic differentiation for the forward propagation as well as in the back propagation. To work with automatic differentiation, we need a differentiable function for the loss functions and other relevant DFT properties. The good thing about automatic differentiation is that it computes the loss function based on the dependencies and automatically computes the gradients whether or not the system converges. It uses a chain rule to automatically computes the values and the gradients as well as it's more accurate than other differentiation methods. With the foundations of density functional theory and physics-informed learning, let's now look towards the full overview of the methodology used in this study. This full overview included the baseline algorithm shown earlier, as well as the pin integration for the baseline algorithm. The methodology starts with defining our crystal structure, which is we did our simulation in a 16 by 16 by 16 real space grid and a 3 by 3 by 3 Moncourse packed samplings case-size sample. We used the conventional unit cell of silicon or FCC unit cell for silicon and aluminum as our material. We extract the atomic positions and charges from that defined material as our input vector for the physics-informed neural network. The core idea here is instead of randomly initialized variational parameters from the direct or from the baseline algorithm, the core idea is what if we put a neural network that provides these parameters for us that may suit the algorithm better and improve computational efficiency. There is a single layer perceptron at the start that takes in the input vector, perform calculations on it, and then branch towards two separate multilayer perceptrons. This is done because variational plane wave parameters must be represented as a complex valued matrix, and variational occupation parameters must be represented as a real valued matrix. That's why from the shared MLP, we branch out towards each for the plane wave and the occupation MLP. These plane wave MLPs and occupation MLPs will now build the variational plane wave parameters and the occupation parameters, and that will be used to build the actual plane waves and occupation matrix. To build the plane wave and occupation matrix from the neural network, we perform the pure decomposition so that the plane waves and occupations are orthonormal. It must be orthonormal for the unconstrained, or must be orthonormal to satisfy one of the constraints of the loss functional that will be shown later. From this, we compute the electronic density, which is a functional of these occupational and plane wave parameters. And from the electron density, we can now compute the free energy. This free energy is now an unconstrained functional of the density, satisfying the constraints on periodicity, orthonormality, and the properties needed by the occupation matrix, which is hermiticity, charge conservation, and Pauli exclusion principle. The free energy consists of the internal total energy, as well as the second term being the entropy of the non-interacting system. After computing the loss functional, we pass it towards a convergence criterion, which is the standard deviation of that loss function value for 50 steps. That is, it must be lower than 10 to the negative 3 for 50 consecutive loops. If not, it will go on towards gradient computations, where it must go on towards gradient computation, where automatic differentiation automatically computes it, the exact derivative values. After computing for the gradients, we turn towards the Adam optimizer because it is fast and requires minimal tuning, and is a good general use case for this neural network. This optimizer will now adjust the weights and biases of our neurons in the model architecture, and will continuously loop towards convergence. And when it converges, we now get our generated results from this algorithm. That is the self-diagonalization process exhibited by the gamma point Hamiltonian represented as a heat map, as well as the band structure generated by both baseline algorithm and physics-informed neural networks. The band structure is interpolated along standard high symmetry paths in the Brillouin zone. And that is the whole overview of our methodology with the pin integration. We now tend towards the results of the study, starting from the self-diagonalization process of the gamma point Hamiltonian for the baseline algorithm. This is the process for silicon that is the self-diagonalization is an evident consequence of the commutative or of the simultaneous diagonalization by the baseline algorithm of the occupation matrix and the Hamiltonian, such that as we keep the occupation matrix orthonormal throughout the whole algorithm, we can expect that the Hamiltonian will converge toward a self-diagonal process. And this next slide is the Hamiltonian evolution for aluminum by the baseline algorithm, which converge at step 5514. Although we have said before that we can expect a diagonal Hamiltonian as long as we keep the occupation matrix diagonal, the off-diagonal elements shown on the final gamma point Hamiltonian represents as a consequence of the rapid convergence of the occupations to 1 or 0 for states that are far from the Fermi level. This off-diagonal elements is more shown on the self-diagonalization process generated by the PIN-DFT approach. So this one is the self-diagonalization process for silicon using the PIN-DFT approach, where it converges at step 4690 with a 28.7 reduction. Well, this one is the self-diagonalization process of the aluminum, of the Hamiltonian for the aluminum at the gamma point using PIN-DFT approach. It converged at step 3993, having a 27.6% reduction from the baseline algorithm. This is the case where the off-diagonal elements are accepted on the final converged Hamiltonian, because the core states or the states where it is near or far from the Fermi level is approximated as ones or zero. That's why the off-diagonal elements are more prone to show up on the regions where there is far from the Fermi level. Continuing our discussion of the results is the comparisons of the convergence history for the PIN-DFT and the baseline algorithm for bulk silicon, and later on for the aluminum. The top panel shows the internal energy throughout the steps. This middle panel shows the value of entropy, and the third panel shows the evolution of the temperature as a smearing parameter of both the baseline algorithm and the PIN-DFT approach. This convergence history illustrates the efficiency of the pin-based approach, where the minimization of the total energy is more efficient, or the neural networks shows that the minimization of the total energy declines rapidly faster than the minimization of the total energy by the baseline algorithm. This one is for the comparisons of convergence history for aluminum generated from the baseline algorithm and the PIN-DFT approach. Usual trends are also observed with aluminum on the internal energy and the faster declines on the entropy uh, towards the convergent value is also observed in aluminum as well as in silicon earlier. The different starting points in temperature is added to to for the to aid the convergence of both algorithms because temperature in both the baseline algorithm and PIN-DFT is only used for to avoid discontinuities generated by the gradients and to smooth out the Fermi-Dirac distribution made from the occupation matrix developed by both algorithms. As our final set of results for this study, we compared the band structures generated from the baseline algorithms and PIN-DFT approach for silicon and aluminum. This band structure aids the validity of our findings that with the physics-informed neural networks, it preserves the physical properties known on the system for semiconductors and conductors, just like how the baseline algorithm preserves these properties. For this band structure of silicon, we can notice the close resemblance to the overall curvature of the bands generated by the PIN-DFT approach from the baseline algorithm. The small band gap at above or below 0 electron volts shows that the properties of silicon being a semiconductor is preserved by the PIN-DFT. This next slide is for the band structure comparison of aluminum in such a way that both the baseline algorithms and PIN-DFT captures the metallic properties of aluminum. That is the crossing of the bands in the Fermi level and the more grounded bands at the conduction region and the valence region of the band structure. By showing successful results for both silicon and aluminum, we are demonstrating that PIN-DFT is transferable to similar types of materials. At last is our table of computational runtime for the two materials in comparison from the baseline algorithm and the PIN-DFT approach. We have in the left rows of both baseline algorithm or left columns of the baseline algorithm and PIN-DFT, we have the wall clock time, the actual computational runtime for the two materials, as well as on the right, the converge step needed, converge step. From the values alone, we can see the trade-off that by adding neural networks, we add more computational requirement needed for the algorithm to converge. That's why there's an increase in wall clock time, even if there's a decrease in convergence steps. This represents that applying a physics-informed neural network should be done in a use case basis. That is, if we need a one-off standard calculations, we can refer towards the baseline algorithm. But if we need a more general use, that is that we can use PIN-DFT as a transferable model to be reused or fine-tuned for other similar systems. For example, for silicon, we can also use or hypertune this PIN-DFT for similar systems from silicon, which is germanium, carbon systems like graphene or diamond and gallium arsenide. For conductors with our aluminum, it can be used for similar systems like copper, gold, or silver. With the results discussed, we can conclude that we can integrate the physics-informed neural networks on this variational optimization approach, and that it preserves the effective gamma point Hamiltonian self-diagonalization process, as well as the physical properties validated by the band structure for both silicon and aluminum as representative material for semiconductors and conductors. Lastly, this PNDFT approach improves algorithmic efficiency by decreasing the convergence steps needed, despite having higher computational time at the implementation. To end my thesis presentation, I present some recommendations for future researchers. That is to extend the PNDFT approach towards other more complex crystalline systems, to explore alternative pin architectures for scalability with respect to the system size in the real space, as well as to the K-point sampling, as well as to explore other DFT targets aside from variational parameters for the physics-informed neural network. With that ends my thesis presentation for this presentation.
Thank you very much, Isaiah. So it's now time for your panel to examine your work. Let's begin with Professor Jan Zaban.
Thanks. Ilang oras, sir? Ilang oras?
30 minutes.
Yung question answer.
30 minutes each or both? Lahat.
Ay, click talaga. Okay, nice. Yeah, nice, Isaiah. It's really a good study. So my question is, why study silicon and aluminum? Why not other?
Silicon and aluminum are representative materials for semiconductors and conductors, and because the baseline algorithm from the literature only works for periodic systems, and because there is several machine learning methods already for isolated systems or molecules that is done in the literature.
Yeah, I know that's you're limited with the articles now, but why silicon? In terms maybe of an industry application or?
We all use
Because of course, if you're just talking about the periodicity, you can consider like MOS2, right? It has this
we use silicon because it's known. We already know the properties of silicon. That's why we can easily test the electronic properties generated by the algorithms as from the literature.
I mean, what is interesting with silicon? Because I understand that there is, of course, a constraint of the articles, right? That there are studies of machine learning applied to silicon. That's why you have the case study of physics informed using silicon. But what is interesting, silicon, that you use silicon instead of any arbitrary semiconductor, and for the aluminum as well for the conductor. In terms of the electronic properties, maybe the conductivity.
So are you asking this because the pipeline is actually in general, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yes.
of course, like you can just replace silicon by any semiconductor.
So why silicon?
Why silicon? Because usually, right, if you have the maybe like some of the substrate like MOS2, like there's a silicon in there. Maybe it's heavily used in the industry. So, but
we chose this silicon and aluminum because it's the only example that has a readily available benchmark provided from the baseline algorithm. That's why I work with the PNDFT specifically on silicon and aluminum.
okay, my question is, I think you introduced there like you feed something on the model, the crystal structure, and you call it bulk silicon. How many layers of silicon is that? I think you construct the 3D model, right? Yeah. Yung sir, yung bulk mo, ilang layers ng silicon yan? Yung feed mo? Di ba
Isang
usually-
layer lang po nung,
Isang layer lang.
isang unit cell lang po nung silicon working with the
Isang,
FPC conventional unit cell.
isang unit cell. Isang unit cell lang yung ginawa mo.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is unit cell or super cell?
Po,
Super cell or unit cell?
yung unit cells.
I mean, because I'm thinking like, of course, for example, like in some software like, I think Quantum Espresso, right? You can generate this, you can actually generate this structure, no? And you can, how many layers, like monolayer, maybe silly, monolayer, bilayer. And of course, now you define it at the bulk, right? If you have different several layers. My question, because as you increase the layers, so it will changes like the conductivity and some other properties as well. So how would it change if I increase the layers? Because I think you said like it's only monolayer and you called it a bulk. So for me, it's like contradicting.
And it changes the
Yeah,
physics
yeah,
again.
yeah, of course. Because once you increase more of that, the conductivity will change as well because you add more atoms, right? More electrons to travel. But in your case, you only choose like monolayer, but your title is bulk. You have a lot of monolayers putting on top of each other. Mag-iiba na din yung results mo kasi, for example, if you have like molybdenum, right? If you put in a substrate, like one layer of bismuth, then the effect of the spin orbit coupling is really high. But if you add more monolayers, like you have maybe 3 layers, then that would have you the bulk bismuth. Then you will dilute the effect of the spin orbit coupling to the substrate. But here, the conductivity will change as well. I mean, because once you say bulk, it's not like monolayer. So hindi siya bulk kasi sabi mo monolayer, so hindi siya bulk. Kasi mag-iiba talaga siya. Yeah, and that is, yeah. Because I think currently we're studying like the molybdenum. I have some collaborators. Molybdenum. Yeah, pure molybdenum, but bulk molybdenum. Sorry, bismuth, sorry. Not the 10G, but the bismuth. But as you increase the layer, the conductivity will change. But I guess for the toy model, for the study, monolayer is okay. I mean, just a toy model, it's okay. But for like if you want applications or want study more on the electronics proper to materials, so because in experiments kasi ginagawa naman talaga nila, hindi ka naman makapag-produce ng monolayer yun kasi masisira yun. Ganito lang siya. So dapat mo taasan. So in your case, so I think yung effect niyan, yung running time mo mas tatagal. Okay. Kaya minsan nilaran siya sa high performance computing kasi matagal yun pag ano. Lalo pag gumagana ng Quantum Espresso, matagal. Like a week. So yun lang naman ano ko dun. Make sure na this is like how many layers is this? Kasi mag-iiba talaga siya kapag in-increase mo siya ng layers. So I don't know. But it's interesting.
So para clarify the limitation.
Yes, of course. Pwede ka magka-problem dun sa ano, di ba pupunta ka sa ground state? Pwede hindi ka mapunta doon. So, I don't know, baka marami kang epsilon doon, hindi lang isa. Epsilon 1, epsilon 2, kasi maraming layers ka na eh. So, for example, you put epsilon 1 for the first layer, second layer, epsilon 2. So, yan. And yung isang question ko pa din yung Adam optimizer mo, yung learning rate mo. So, very important din yan.
0.18, 10 to the negative.
Yeah.
Pinatas.
And yeah, so yung make sure lang talaga kung ano yan, limitation kasi otherwise mag-iiba talaga siya. Kasi nung unang tingin ko, nakita ko, bulk, pero then I ask you only consider this. And I think usually ganito, yung thickness, tingin ka ng literature yung thickness ng bulk silicon. Tapos divide mo lang yan, tapos yun na yung layers mo. Oo. Should. Interesting din yung maging results nun. Pero for toy models, okay na to. Okay. Then yun, maybe another question ko is yung ano. So yung, di ba yung results mo like parang yung running time mo nung isa mas maliit?
Yes, sir.
Mas mabilis siya pero yung isa mas matagal sa physics and formula.
Yes, sir.
Pero yung convergence mo na after several steps lang, panalo ka naman sa number of epochs, di ba? sa convergence, sa iterations. Parang ganun.
Mas
Yung,
konti, sir.
konti lang yung convergence.
Yung
So, paano masabi na better yung physics informed doon?
Sir, use case basis siya when we can generalize or we want to generalize the PNDFC towards other materials with similar structures. In that way, train na siya sa silicon, but we can apply it and expect a shorter runtime for other materials. But
Actually, it turns out that you cannot just ito yung problem, like once you study, and think experience ko kasi dito, once you study different atom naman, iba rin. For example, like yung bismuth ka, mayroong spin orbit coupling, and this one, since silicon, weak yung intrinsic spin orbit coupling mo. So you can just take it away. Maybe it's a basis of certain types of atoms that is close to the silicon properties with weak spin orbit coupling. So yun lang naman. So saka yung band structure na pwede mo pabalik sa band structure mo. Nakita ko masyado yan, medyo yan okay yan. Okay. Yan sir. So yung silicon yung silicon na indirect band gap or direct?
indirect.
Indirect? Okay. So initially so yung physics informed mo mas mataas ba yung niya, band gap or mas maliit?
Almost equal lang naman po yung band gap.
Almost same, pero sino mas mataas?
Yung pin converge, mas
Yung
angat konti.
so mas mataas yung kasi direct naman siya, di ba? So halos same. Yan. Ay, mas mataas yung band gap pa rin. Yung physics informed, no? Mas mataas yung band gap. Kasi yung dash line mo, ito yung di ba? Yung baseline mo. So mas mataas yung band gap ng physics informed. So nangyari mas naging siya. Yung pagiging semiconductor niya mas na-express, right? Yung physics informed. So would you think that is better description? Kasi mas inopen mo yung band gap mo. Or meron ba dapat akong difference na okay? Kasi kung di ba kung masyadong malayo yung band gap ng physics informed mo, baka hindi okay. Pero kung maliit lang naman siya, baka okay lang yan, syempre kasi masyado maliit lang yan. Anyway, don't be tense, just para makatulong lang din sa future work mo.
Related question. How would this work pag halimbawa dito yung model natin?
Oo.
Ano magiging change yun sa results mo? Speculate lang
Perhaps kung bago yung volume band gap, mas tataas, mag-shift yung conduction bands and yung valence bands. So upwards or downwards.
So lalayo siya from the baseline.
Pwede. Pwede sir, kasi di na makapture ng machine learning mo yung mga attributes mo eh. Hindi mo na, kasi ang dami mo na nilagay, di na makakapture ng machine learning mo. So wala na, pwedeng yung band gap mo pwedeng lumaki. Yes sir, okay. Si Paul ka.
Thank you, Isaiah, for the presentation, and thank you for Dr. Aban for focusing on the questions on the physics-related objects of the thesis. My questions will be more on the machine learning side and deep learning. First, I'd like to comment that I think the use of pins here is well motivated because the system that you're studying is governed by physical laws. So that's the advantage of pins, di ba? Unlike many neural networks that are really agnostic. They are mainly data-driven. The system that you're studying is actually governed by physical laws. I think the use of pins is well justified here. I'll start with the high-level comments. Regarding your title, I think, are you open to revising the title a bit? Because, one point would be the title is very generic, I guess, or very vanilla. And somehow I think it takes away from one of your contributions in this work. Kasi your title says variational minimization of the ground state energy via physics-informed neural network, and then they have the case study for silicon and aluminum. That's a vanilla title. But I think your contribution actually is using the pin to guide the solver to get to the solution faster. I think that's your contribution here. So yung current formulation ng title, although accurate, I think takes away a little bit on your contribution. So maybe revise the title to something like a pin-guided variational PWDFT for ground state calculations, specifically for silicon and aluminum. Just to highlight a bit the novelty of your work. Kasi hindi naman trivial yun, eh, di ba? So hindi mo lang basta ginamit yung pin, there was a specific use of the pin in the entire architecture. You used it to inform better the solver to get to the solution faster. Faster meaning epoch-wise. Yan. So siguro yun. So that's one of the main comment ko on the thesis. Maybe rephrase the title a bit. And then let me go now to the to the specifics. Can you go back to the objective slide? So you mentioned two, if I remember it right.
Yes.
Okay. The second one is clear. The first one, you said to significantly reduce the computational cost by integrating the pin, right? So, okay, that's a good objective. But when you get to the computational cost, so Dr. Aban pointed it out earlier that when you had a table, right, for the convergence, so yes, it was faster, epoch-wise, you get to the solution faster, but computationally, the wall clock runtime is higher. So can you try to reconcile that with your objective here, the first objective?
I admit the computational cost term here is a bit arbitrary because it can be it's not defined whether it's in epoch-wise or in computational runtime.
So yeah, maybe
Maybe
revert the first objective kasi maganda yung result mo kasi epoch-wise mas mabilis siya talaga. So which means, I guess it's better learning kasi there's more information being captured by the system to get to the solution faster. But it does introduce its relevant computational cost. No, so yes, so maybe revise the first one. So yeah, of course, at the moment, for me, on my side as the focusing on the learning, maganda yung result kasi mas manageable yung computational cost. Diba? If you have the resource anyway, diba? Important that we can get to the solution faster. So I think there's still value there. So medyo i-refine lang yung first objective kasi medyo contrasting siya dun sa result na nakuha mo. Yan. So that's one. And then, that leads me to the my second question. Can you go back to the architecture again, the entire pipeline? So I understand that you inject the pin, right, to inform the solver to get to the solution faster. So my question here is the architecture. You used MLP, right?
Yes.
Did you try to use other architectures here?
No.
So why particularly MLP?
Because it's a simple enough representation for
Okay.
neural networks,
Uh-huh.
and because I needed to represent the variational plane wave parameters and the occupation parameters separately.
Mhm.
I was thinking if I'm gonna use other architectures, then the computational cost required will be higher, and it will break
Okay.
the training the algorithm.
So the use of MLP is just really for proof of concept.
Yes.
Okay. So that leads me to my other main question is that, so you've shown that if you inject pins, then we get to the solution faster, right? So it helps the solver do its work. So my question is, how can we be certain that we got to the solution faster because of the physics involved? So maybe it was because of the architecture. So how do we ensure that in fact the benefit that we get was introduced by the physics learned rather than just the architecture of the pin injected?
Perhaps we can benchmark
Yes,
the
exactly.
results from other ML assistants.
Exactly.
that we
Yeah.
see.
So yun. So the MLP is a good first start, but perhaps to better argue that the benefit that we got was because of the physics learned, we can actually change this and see how it goes. Yeah, so yung one recommendation perhaps,
Yes.
for the test case, it's okay, but to really drive the point that the improvement was because of the physics learned, perhaps we can change this, we can change the architecture. And maybe even change the other parameters. I don't know. So maybe design an experiment. This is for recommendation. This is not for your work, but maybe recommendation. Swap that with other architectures or specifically alter, parang mag-design ka ng experiment that will conclusively say na yung benefit was driven by the physics learned. Can you go to the table ng ano, yung computation tsaka yung run clock time tsaka yung epochs, no? Yan. Okay. So, several choices that you made were really driven by the resources available, di ba? So, hindi ko lang alam, saan mo ni-run ito?
Sa Google Colab, sir.
Google Colab. Okay. Okay, so yung wall clock time really takes away from the advantages. My question really here is more on the use of the pin kasi unfortunately all neural networks are still black boxes, right? We don't really know how they function, and mas ang gusto ko sanang makita is how directly did the physics improve the learning. So kasi dito clearly na ipakita mo, significant yung drop ng number ng epochs that you need to get to the solution, di ba? Parang for the silicon from 6408 to 4690. Although dumami yung ano na yung explanation no bakit tumaas yung wall clock time?
Introducing physics for neural networks adds more computational cost.
Computational cost, okay. So parang overhead cost yun for using the pins, no? So although may control tayo dito, if we do have access to the resources, ang concern ko lang yung okay yung use ng pin. Obviously it gave you more information to converge faster. Ang question ko lang, how can we categorically pinpoint the physics that helped you get to that point? Kasi black box pa rin yung pin eh. Paano kaya natin, parang in-inject natin yung pin, di ba? Para mag-work yung system at mabilis. So, paano kaya natin ma-dissect yung pin so that the result that you got here, we can pinpoint, or we can map back to what physics actually informed that?
The loss function from
At ano pwede mong gawin ganito? Marami kang physics di ba na nilagay? Isa lang mo na ilagay yun. Dalawa, tatlo, compare mo ngayon. Dapat mag-effect yan.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah.
Kapag yung stock of convergence dapat paluin, yung epochs, dapat okay siya.
Ah.
Pero kapag fluctuate, yun may problema ka. Ibig sabihin, may features doon na hindi mo kailangan talaga yung physics na yun.
Well, that's one way to go about it. Kasi being a black box, hindi natin may dissect yun eh. So hindi mo makontrol yun, kumbaga, what's happening inside it
Isa-isa lang.
for now. Okay, for now, hindi pa natin. Pero ang pwede mo kontrolin, yung input doon. So para lang meron tayong better link sa ano bang physics, paano ba natutunan ng yung physics na binigay mo to improve the result.
Actually, pwede mo may-try din. Ano ba yung dominant contribution ng mga physics doon? Yung pinaka-importante, ma-capture mo na. Okay na. Pag okay tapos yung isa, sobrang, kasi di ba pwede fluctuating yung convergence nito, pwede mas mataas, pwede mag-content. Ibig sabihin yung isa, panggulo lang. So pwede mo tanawin. As long as dapat yung epochs nung pababa siya. So pwede kang mas mataas. Pwede yung epochs mo dyan, mas mababaw, mas mataas.
Yeah, that's one thing that you can do. Kasi being a black box, there's not a lot we can say. Pero kung di ko control naman natin input sa kanya, at least we can say something about the results emanating from it.
Kasi di ba yung baseline, P equals 0?
Yeah, yung walang pin.
Basically, math lang yun. Oo.
Yes.
And tingnan mo rin yung mga attributes mo, di ba? Kasi di minsan, naka-effects, kapag meron kang architecture na machine learning, like yung mga neurons mo daw, correspond to the different attributes na gusto mo i-capture. Minsan iba doon hindi importante. So minsan, imbis na matulong siya, hindi. And pangalawa pa, minsan may normalization ka. Minsan may normalize yung data mo. Na-normalize mo ba?
Yung parameters sir inherently or normalized na siya based on sa initialization ng algorithm as well. Architecture.
So, pero I guess, kung fix ka na sa ano, kung okay na yung architecture mo, yun, so okay na ba? Isa-isa lang, compare mo.
Oo.
May pili ka tanggalin doon o hindi.
Yes. So that's one way. Another way would be use activation maps. So for image-based classification that use CNNs as well, pwede mo tingnan yung last layer and then use the activation maps to map the regions back to the image to see kung ano ba yung tinitingnan ng CNN. So although hindi ko alam dito dahil ang input mo hindi naman image, di ba? Pero there must still be a way to revert back to the input from hindi ko alam kung last layer or yung second to the last layer. So it's another way para lang to add interpretability dun sa model na ginamit. Yun. Yun ang mga questions ko. So yung title, baka ano. Thank you.
Thank you po, sir.
Konting ano lang. Dun sa structure mo, you have a table for both silicon and aluminum, right?
Yes.
So, i-clear mo lang kasi in your structure, you show the primitive cell for silicon. You can either use FCC, right? So, FCC na hindi primitive like conventional, ilan yung atoms niya? Basis?
2 sir.
Okay. Pero pag naging primitive na, kasi medyo, may ano lang doon. Concern lang. Now, balik ka doon. No. So, pag doon ka sa FCC natin, na face-centered cubic, meron ka sa corners. So, isa yon. Tama? Tapos, ilan yung nasa faces mo?
Di master. Faces.
Faces. Sa faces ng cube. Itong maliit tong isa. Hindi yung nasa taas. Bilangin mo na lang ilan yung bases mo dito. Para lang sure kasi kapag kasi ni-reduce mo siya sa FCC na yung hindi na cubic, isa na lang yung basis mo. So, nakalagay sa table ay 2 yung number of atoms per unit cell. But technically, you only use 1. Yan lang. Yan lang. Tapos, tama naman yung sa aluminum. May question lang ay, doon sa limitation kasi niya, sir, sa GPO, meron silang input file na required. So, na-limit ka doon kaya mo pinili na dito sa ano ba? Kasi itong ginamit mo sa aluminum is directly na conventional cell, di ba? So, ba't conventional cell sa aluminum and primitive sa silicon? Yun lang.
So, yun lang yung readily available.
Yun lang available na. Hindi mo na-try na ma-edit siya. Doon sa Oh, kaso ang problema ay under development pa rin siya. So,
Yes.
pero hindi mo na try sinadjust ko na i-test mo na Hindi mo na ba Tapos wala pa rin silang ibang functional. LDA pa rin to
Yung actually exchange part lang ng LDA yung included.
Oh, yun nga, pero wala pa sila ng mga generalized gradient, di ba? Yun din yung huli kong tingin. Tapos padagdag na lang siguro ng Brillouin zone. Kasi nagbibigay ka ng band structure para makita yung anong path doon sa Brillouin zone yung nilagay mo. Kasi yun nga, doon sa silicon you have L, gamma, XL. Doon sa aluminum you have gamma, X, M, gamma. So, ilagay mo lang siya doon sa katabi ng, katabi lang. So, yun lang. The other comments ko ay doon lang naman sa writing. So, si Sir Ian, baka may additional.
Okay, I think maganda yung mga suggestions nung panel. Okay, particularly yung point nga na from a toy model to bulk, kailangan din i-reconcile yung aspect na yun. Tapos kung paano i-explain better yung sa paggamit nung neural networks at saka nung pins. Okay, but in general, you did a very good presentation. Okay, and after this, you can relax habang ina-assess namin yung dinideliberate namin yung work mo. Okay, if there are no questions from the audience, I would like to thank Isaiah for his presentation. Congratulations.